I don't think it has yet. I
Oh.
mean, it's contingent on
The
that.
first thing is the
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a motion that's been put forward by Councilman Hartzell to deny the application of Scannell Properties for the amendments to the LFTC PDD. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I would move the resolution.
Second.
Discussion?
Darren, do you mind if I'm recognized as the sponsor of the resolution here?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
As long as the board is okay with that. We okay? Fine.
So I made a big, long impassioned speech, which I'm not going to make these folks in the audience suffer through again. I think, I mean, the planning board's resolution speaks for itself, which they voted on unanimously. They had the discretion, if they thought that the proposal presented an opportunity to be a workable proposal for the town, to go back and make recommendations and ask the applicant to consider modifying their proposal. But they didn't do that. And the reason they didn't do that is because the proposal, I think, is just so wildly inconsistent with the plans for our town. And I have to take exception to the position that their counsel took in their letter, in her letter to us, that the planning board also appeared confused on the issue of consistency with the town's comprehensive plan. So a couple things about that. First of all, as the memo we received today from our counsel made clear, is that our planning board did not make their decision to recommend denial on the basis of inconsistency with the town's comprehensive plan. The other thing that I have to take issue with is the observation that our planning board members, who among them probably has 50 plus years of experience with our town planning documents and town planning generally, would be confused about the town's comprehensive plan. I think if there's any confusion, the confusion is in the belief that the Scannell proposal is consistent with that plan. I think that confusion, there's in fact an admission of the inconsistency in the statements by Scannell that the amendments are consistent with the proposed updates and that we have the discretion to amend our plan. To me, that's a concession that the proposal is inconsistent with the current plan. And when you look at the sections that they say are consistent, well, first of all, I don't know how they would know that the PDD amendment proposal that they made is consistent with the proposed comprehensive plan update, because as you heard earlier tonight, it's not even done yet and the town board hasn't even seen it. So I don't know how Scannell could possibly know that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan update because we don't have it yet. And when you look at the consistencies, which they argue, the 3 points here, you could put anything in the tech campus that created a job, and that would be consistent under their rationale with the master plan. And we know that it's not consistent with the master plan. The master plan calls for 4 wafer manufacturing facilities and ancillary development in the tech campus. It's that simple. A warehouse complex of 3.5 million square feet, which the applicant has told us they would build out completely within a 5-year period, is not consistent with the plan for the Luca Forest Tech campus. It's that simple. Now, there are people that would have you, as it seems to be the case on an increasing basis these days, there are people that want to try and convince you that white is not white, and black is not black. It's that black and white. This is completely inconsistent with the master plan. If the town board wants to amend the master plan to allow for 3.5 million square feet of warehouse in the tech campus, that's the prerogative of the town board to do that. But as it stands now, this is not consistent with the town's master plan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Any other comments on this?
Yeah, I know I wasn't here for much of this discussion last week and apologize for that, but I think, my take on this is that, acting in this manner tonight is very premature. We even have a reference from the Saratoga County Planning Board that has recommended we wait to see the impact, the report from the SGEIS before making further determinations. I have the utmost respect for the members of our planning board, and in no way, is my position reflective of submitting my judgment for theirs. However, I think we would be acting far out of line with a rational timeline to reject this as it stands tonight. We don't have all the information. We literally just received guidance from our attorneys at about 5 p.m. today. And I haven't properly processed the implications of that memo versus what Skinnell's attorneys have shared with us. I think it would be very premature to essentially hit this project with a hammer at this point when we don't have all the information that's needed. Sure, the original plan called for 4 wafer fabs in the tech park, because that original plan was drafted in a much different time, in a much different environment, in a much different marketplace. As someone who has been in probably every major semiconductor wafer fab in the United States, I will absolutely affirm to you that the semiconductor industry is wildly different today than it was when this plan was put together in the mid 2000s. The industry went from dozens and dozens and dozens of companies able to build leading edge chip fabs to now about 5, probably less. The fact that Global Foundries is entertaining a second fab is fantastic. That they've announced a second fab is fantastic. I would bet my life that we're not going to see 4 fabs in that campus ever. No one's going to build next to Global Foundries, and for Global Foundries to build out 4, it's certainly not going to happen in any immediate lifetime, because the industry's changed so significantly. The project that they're talking about right now is tens of billions of dollars investment, which is fantastic, and I'm great, and I'm thrilled to see it. But it's still just a plan. After this tech campus was first envisioned back in 2006, we've literally had 1 investment in the tech park. I think a thoughtful review is necessary. A detailed review is necessary. It will be important for this town board and our planning staff and engineers to have fully digested the traffic study that was being undertaken by the applicant, to fully understand the SGEIS, to reflect against proposed changes to the comprehensive plan, as Councilman Hartzell's referred. We have not yet seen the comprehensive plan. We don't know the contents of it. I think it would be incredibly premature for us to take this action, and in doing so, essentially end an opportunity for $250 million of investment and 2,500 jobs. The support and ancillary uses of a tech campus is a pretty broad and wide-ranging term. And while I'm not going to debate at this time whether this fits in that scope or not. The reality is we don't have all the information yet to be able to make a thorough analysis. Now, perhaps others on the board feel differently and think that they have all the information necessary to render a judgment here. But Councilman Hartzell was quite accurate when he said earlier this year that rushing into a decision around this project, a project of this magnitude, is wildly dangerous for a town today, for a town in the future. And I would strongly encourage my colleagues to reject this resolution tonight. We still have the opportunity to deny the application. Rejecting this resolution tonight does not approve Scannell's application. It doesn't mean that we disagree with the planning board. It doesn't mean that they have carte blanche to build whatever they want at Luther Forest. What it means is we would be rejecting a resolution so that we can properly understand all of the data and metrics, the studies that are being conducted, the SGEIS, properly and practically review and assess all these variables, as well as consider potential changes to the project. In an iterative process such as this, as was done with Global Foundries, more than a decade ago, there is a dialogue and a back and forth, and it's really incumbent upon us to truly understand all the moving parts of a project, say what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate vis-a-vis our land use standards, and also understand how that's going to impact the town for the next 25 or 50 years, and where appropriate, say this use makes sense, that use doesn't, and do that in a constructive manner rather than just carte blanche saying we reject this when we don't have all the information. I will oppose this resolution, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. I don't know if the applicants have further information they'd like to share with the board, but I certainly would encourage and welcome any of that further input before we take action this evening.
Thank you, Tim. And yeah, I've taken a careful look at, at the planning board's recommendation. And I note that they also incorporate the comments that were made during the course of that hearing. And I've looked at those minutes, and I will look at them again before I would vote in favor of any further development, because I think the planning board's determination is entitled to great weight. Mm-hmm. I also think that John Hartzell has made some very valid points. However, I am not willing to stop the process cold at this point. I think we need more information. That's not to say that anything that's been proposed so far, is going to be or even likely to be approved in its present form. What it does mean is that I personally would like to see the traffic study, the SGIS, which could be coming in sometime this month. So for those reasons, I will also oppose this motion.
As Darren knows, I've been struggling with this decision, and I still am. On the one hand, my preliminary opinion that as the project stands today, it probably isn't the right fit for Malta. The amendments to the PDD are just too extreme with respect to the buffering, the noise, and the architectural guidelines. I don't want to say no warehouses in the forest, because as we know, the world has changed where warehouses are sort of a necessary thing. And I don't want to be a NIMBY that, says we're not going to have any warehouses in our town. But the sheer scale of this project kind of scares me. Of course, the unanimous decision of the planning board too is a very weighty consideration. But on the other hand, I think it may be premature to dismiss it now. We initially gave the nod to the applicant to proceed with the application. We've asked for a traffic study. Don't know how far into that they are. It would give us a better understanding of how it will impact the community. I also want to see a lot more information about the types of warehouses and the quality of the jobs that will be offered. I saw UPS was offering warehouse jobs for something like $26.75 an hour. So warehousing is an industry that at least, I want to learn more about. So I guess after I've gone back and forth many ways about yes or no, if in spite of the challenges that face this application, the applicant chooses to proceed, then I guess I'm willing to stay the course for now, and I will vote no on the resolution.
Darren, may I be heard again?
Sure.
I guess I would take exception to the notion that what our planning board did was not careful and thoughtful. My understanding is they had quite a careful and thoughtful look at this project. And the county planning board acted as they did because they were provided with inadequate information on which to make any decision, which is a shortcoming of the application. As I found the applicant to be shortcoming in its initial submission to us because of inadequate information. I think, to say that an Amazon warehouse, which ships the kind of things that we all have been buying during the pandemic, is ancillary to a $15 billion state-of-the-art high-tech microchip manufacturing facility. That's a stretch that I just can't make. It's not even a gossamer relationship. And the thing that I'm mindful of is that our code says that if an application comes back with a unanimous recommendation for disapproval, the town board has the prerogative to do so. That's why we're even having this conversation. It doesn't say you should consider that and then wait and get more information, although that's an option. It says you can do this right now. And we've heard nothing from our council that would suggest that we can't do this right now. There's been an issue raised about the supermajority voting requirement. That's another matter. Denying the application right now is a legislative determination on an application, which we've been assured we have the prerogative to do. And the last thing I guess I would ask is to my colleague at the other end of the dais is, does the comp plan amendment proposal, which we've not seen yet, but which you've worked on for months, call for the tech campus uses to be modified to allow for a warehouse complex?
Not specifically. There is language in there that suggests some flexibility in the zoning because of the the lack of development. Of course, things have changed since we even talked about that, with Global announcing a second fab and more investment in their facility. And so it doesn't specifically address that or change anything that changes the intent of the PDD. That being said, as I said last week, the traffic study in my mind is still key, because if we're not going to take away trips from Global Foundries to give them to the warehouses, so that the trips that are generated by the warehouses have to be below the thresholds, or at least in my mind, they have to be below the thresholds that we already have technically allotted to a second fab in Luther Forest. So I think that's going to be a big hurdle for them to go over. The other thing that you said, and I want to make perfectly clear, I have a lot of confidence in our planning board. I think they did their due diligence. I think they spent a lot of time. It was like a 4-hour meeting, I think, where they discussed this. And so that's a huge consideration for me. I'm not necessarily willing to debate yet, but I think it's something that I would advise the Scanel to make sure that they're, hearing loud and clear that this project as it stands now has a lot of challenges to move forward. So, but leaving it up to them in my mind.
Any other discussion on this motion?
Yeah, I respect the planning board's recommendation. It was a long evening, almost 4 hours. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thanks, Greg. Any other discussion?
Just one final point, Darren, if I could, please, and thank you for your patience here. The one thing, so I don't know that I speak with any particular, greater authority than anyone else on the town board, but I've spent a lot of time. So this is my 4th time running for office, which I'm doing right now. And over that period of time, I'm not kidding you. I've knocked on probably 7,000 doors. I've knocked on 7,000 doors over that period of time. And the one thing, and I'm hearing it more this time around, is the comp plan hearings heard the same thing. We don't want overdevelopment. We don't want a huge increase in traffic. And that, to me, is what a 3.5 million square foot Amazon complex in the middle of the tech campus represents. It represents just what the people of the town are saying they do not want. And I just want the people of the town, if any of them are on, to know that I hear what you're saying. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, John. Any other discussion on this motion?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to add to that. In the time that I have gone door to door, the big concerns was development and traffic. To this day, it's still the same. And it's just, it's a too big of a bite to chew. I mean, this traffic is going to go very close to many of the households that get on the phone, and they ask me for updates week to week. What's the traffic situation? What's the traffic situation? And I feel for them. They have come out and stated very clearly, they're very concerned about the development and the traffic in this town. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Craig. Any other discussion?
Just really briefly, Darren, just to piggyback on what Craig just said, it's not even just a matter of traffic, in my opinion, it's the type of traffic. When you're talking warehouse distribution, anything of that nature, it's going to be tractor trailers, it's not going to be cars. So do we want that increased number of tractor trailers in, around, on our highways? I don't think that there's anybody that really wants that.
Thanks, Mark. Any other discussion? If I could make an exception, generally we don't. I would make an exception if the board has no objection, if any of the board members wants input from the Scanell representatives. But other than that, I think we're ready to vote on this motion. All right, there being no request. Thank you for your offer. There being no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails. Next item on the agenda is the Luther Forest Athletic Field Design Services.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah. I hope that everybody on our town board looks at this very seriously, and that if anybody serves on the ball fields and the Scotty's committee, or has a financial interest in it, recuses them. So they do not have a, excuse me, if they do not have a vote here. The other thing is I thought we were going to have a workshop on this first.
I mean, we've discussed this for a long, long time. I think we can have a workshop on the issue of, participation at the Luther Forest Athletic Fields. There was some concern about the numbers of Malta residents versus, opposed from that and, outside organizations using the fields. And, I see that as kind of a separate issue from, moving forward with the lighting program.
So this is strictly for the designs purposes only?
No, this is for the softball field lighting, the electric service upgrade, the parking lighting, because otherwise, if you're only lighting the field and not parking, it creates a safety issue. And as was in the grant application, the bleachers and the scoreboards.
Okay. Thank you.
Darren, may I be heard, please?
Sure.
I mean, I'm going to try and read Tim Downey's mind and say, I thought that when we met a week ago, there was an agreement among the board to have a workshop with the softball and soccer folks. So why is the town board a week later presented with a resolution to vote on the actual funding and going forward with the project? So that's what Tim Downey's probably thinking. Am I right? There you go. Because I was thinking the same thing. I mean, that's my position. I'm not comfortable going forward at this juncture. You've heard me go on and on about my belief in the importance of competitive athletics for our kids. I still believe in that. I just don't think that this, as it's packaged now, is the best we can do. So I'm going to respectfully vote to oppose it for now. But I'm willing to meet again and to see if we can put together something that's a little more balanced. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other discussion?
Well, but as to with respect of, how many people or participants live in Malta or don't live in Malta. I mean, one thing is our Malta kids are also playing on other fields in other places. It's the nature of the beast. And, we've got a premier field and I see this as making capital improvements to one of our assets to make it more usable for more groups. And you go over there on the weekend, the place is well used. But I might have a question that I want to ask Alyssa, because part of the, conversation here is, it's only, so many Malta kids compared to kids from other places. But can you give us any idea, Alyssa, about what like pavilion rentals in the Shannon Taha Park might be, or?
Yes, I know these numbers because you asked me earlier. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. off the top of my head. But
Ne-
if I-
Never ask a question you don't know the answer
if I had
to.
the answer off the top of my head, I'd say that multi-community park, pavilion rentals are usually Malta and Shannon's.
Oh, you should have just answered with the actual numbers off the top of your head, Alyssa.
More of a flair
You
for
can
the
tell you're not a
dramatic.
politician.
So this year today at Shannon Creek Park, we rented the pavilion 21 times, and 13 of those are residents, so it's around 32%. And Malta Community Park, we rented 21 times, and 11 of those are residents. So it's around
And that does make sense. Community parks in Luther Forest, people would go there.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Did we spend $996,683 on the pavilion? Yeah, I would guess not.
No, but we've made significant investments in both of those parks. I mean, what park improvements did we make last year at
Mhm.
Malta Community Park?
Yep.
We continually make significant improvements. And I think if we make these improvements, first of all, it's just a start. We have that whole plan that we got from the LA group. While I agree with John that soccer is important, I think that ultimately, phase 2, I'd love to see get the soccer field lighted because that could be a place for even other events that can
Absolutely.
last into the night. But movies, in the park, if we've got electricity and, we've got lights, we can have movies.
Are we going to have the money to do all that?
Well, this is funded partly with a grant. I mean, one thing is lighting the field. I don't have the paperwork with me. I don't remember exactly how much the additional lighting for the soccer field was, but part of this includes the electric service upgrade and the parking facility and pedestrian lighting. So yeah, this initial project is costly. Lighting the soccer field, maybe we can get another grant from someplace to light the soccer field. If we get a $250,000 grant and the cost of lighting the soccer field is only $350,000, then
I mean,
Then yeah, it's
here,
affordable.
the grant amount here, 250,000 of about $1 million. It's 25% grant. So we're having to throw, it's one thing to come in with a help yourself get reelected members item for 250,000, which is exactly what this was. Let's not kid ourselves. It's another thing for the town to throw $750,000 of town funds at it. Again, I think there is, an opportunity to fashion something that makes more sense. I just don't think 750,000 of town funds. I mean, this is really the tail wagging the dog here. It really is. And I don't think it's the way we should approach this.
As I've stated in the past, if I went in and asked for a grant, was just about a quarter of it for some other thing, it could be a highway, it could be transportation, I'd get chased out of the office. So it applies here, I think.
Any other comments? Any other discussion on the motion?
just to say we are using the additional money that we're funding this with is money that is in the park reserve or recreation mitigation money. It's money that's specifically set aside to make capital improvements to our parks and rec facilities.
That's true.
Yep.
But going forward, we have to maintain the properties that we have, and it comes from a different fund. That's taxpayers. And we learned that on Dunning Street. The taxpayers had to pay for that. A handful of it.
Any other discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to appoint our Deputy Animal Control Officer,
So moved.
Carliana Russell.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next item on the agenda is to appoint additional members to the Malta Economic Development Committee and a secretary to ease their burden a little bit.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item on the agenda is to approve a course for Jessa to attend in, let's see, where is this? Delhi, about farm appraisals.
Tropical Delhi, New York.
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item on the agenda is authorization for travel and lodging expenses for Paul Peralt, a historian, to attend the Association of Public Historians Conference in
So
Oswego.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item on the agenda is budget transfers, and we discussed this last week. And the hope and expectation is that it's not going to snow every single day in December. With that, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any other business? Town board members?
yeah, last Sunday, there was a rocket toga at the drive-in to help the Melodies Center, which is for childhood cancer. And it was canceled because it poured out, thundered. And unfortunately, we had to reschedule it for August 22nd at the drive-in from 12 until 6 o'clock. Great event. Thank you.
Well, it might be better at the end of the summer rather than the beginning. So it'll be a summer ending bash. So that's unfortunate that it was, I know you've done a ton of work on this, Craig. So thank you. It sounds like lots of fun. Any other business on town board
Can
members?
I just want to ask, I meant to ask this early. Alyssa, are we still full steam ahead with Community Day, even though we got the uptick? Are you, last we spoke, we hadn't heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, we haven't heard from a lot of people. We're planning community day. We're not having like bounce houses, so kids aren't like all over each other. We're trying to like be mindful of that. And how we plan.
Right.
But yeah, it's low feedback from this.
If you've reserved stuff and we end up canceling, we lose deposits on tents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope we don't have
I
to.
mean, I hope we don't have to. It's outside. So hopefully
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you know,
I hope people's
doesn't-
comfort level
right,
stays,
right.
you know.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from town residents? Would anyone like to address us? Roger?
Paul Perot dropped off a historic district sign. I guess it's knocked down, fell down.
I'm glad you remembered to raise that.
I said I was. And I was wondering whether we put it back up, but he said there's no historic.
Yeah, because of, it just came in today. I didn't want to just slap it on the agenda. But I think it's something the town board has to discuss because, you know, since there's no historic district, do we want to, you know, put that sign back on? So if we hold on to it, and then the town board can make a judgment as to, you know, how we want to deal with that, you know, location. Thanks, Roger.
Roger, the roads look good too, by the way. Phenomenal job.
Yep.
That salt
Yeah,
shed probably helped
absolutely.
out.
Yeah. Mike, did I see your hand up?
Good evening, Michael Williams from Malta. My question for the board is, who asked Assemblywoman Warner for the grant for the athletic fields?
I did.
Okay. So. did you-
Actually, I didn't ask for it. I was asked for ideas.
Oh, okay. So did you feel that it was a election ploy or a reason for her to?
I don't think she actually even put anything out on it when she
Okay.
did it.
So I just want to clarify that it was her trying to help the community in Malta because we need athletic fields, we need improvements. And I don't think it's a joke to make a joke about it. Okay. If you guys want to really do something and say something in the public, say something about, you know, say something about creating the sidewalks on Route 9 here for the people from Malta Gardens. You know, start working on something productive like that. Talk about how, you know, the Republicans in Congress is talking about hurting the Democrats. Okay. I think you guys need to start focusing on the community here in Malta a little bit more than what you're doing.
Thanks, Mike. I think the board does focus on that all the time, but yes, Tim.
Tim Downey, taxpayer here in Malta. And it's not a joke. Okay, it's not a joke to spend close to $1 million on maybe 100 people here in Malta. That's not a joke. It's taxpayer money. They talk about grants. Where's the grants come from? It's taxpayer money. Okay, we really need some transparency here. Okay, one question. Any of you have a spouse that's on Miss Scotty's board of directors? Any of you?
I do.
Okay.
Are you suggesting Miss
No, I'm
Scotty's is
not
getting money?
suggesting anything other than transparency.
Because they aren't.
Transparency. This isn't a joke. You're spending $800,000 to light a baseball or softball field. And I think that's just, it's crazy. It's outrageous. When I've come to these meetings, they talk about water. They need water in parts of the town. What did they spend? They didn't spend anything. shot it down, trouble, problem. But here we need lights for little kids. And then we have board members voting on stepping up, raising his hand. He got a Democrat to give us money, which is our money, $250,000. I think it's craziness, absolute craziness. And you had no right in voting in that. You had no right. It's craziness. Yeah, it's funny. It's a joke. You know, you take taxpayer money and you just throw it around. It's crazy. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any other comments? Kathy? Yes, sir. What's your name?
Robert Stout.
Could you step up to the mic?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Robert Stout on behalf of Scanell Properties. Appreciate the sentiment that the board expressed this evening relative to letting the process play out. I don't want to get further into the details other than to update you on our process. I've understood all along that from the project team, who incidentally apologizes for not being able to be here this evening. They just found out, I believe, on Friday that the matter would be discussed in a substantive fashion this evening. That said, I understand that all along the position of the town has been to let the SGEIS process play out before we engage with the town in a substantive fashion on your concerns relative to the PDD, which we hear loud and clear, and we certainly heard loud and clear this evening. I do understand that SGS is scheduled to issue at some point in the next month. I'm here with Tim Bailey, who's been a project engineer on the matter. He can speak briefly to that and to the ongoing traffic study as well. So I'll turn it over to Tim now if it's okay with you.
Sure, thank you.
Good evening, Tim Bailey with Barwin Johnson. We are the engineers for Scanell for their proposal. We are working diligently to get the SGIS completed. It is almost ready to send to your town engineer for initial review, electronic copies. The traffic study was just delivered to our office, hard copy Friday. We are reviewing it, getting it through it as fast as we can, and that will also be forthcoming to your review engineer, to Shaden. So we're going to start sending in sections for him to start reviewing ahead of time before we submit the entire document to the town. Get his input first, maybe head off a few questions, comments, and then submit the completed document when it's all wrapped up.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
This better be controversial, Kathy.
I would like to try that, but that's not my character. I wanted to end on a positive note. I want to thank you for approving the historic marker. These folks have worked very hard on preserving the quality in this home in history. And I want to make a comment that the historic district is no longer a designated district, but the history happened. So please keep that in mind. Just because something is now gone or redesignated doesn't mean it wasn't a historical site. So I appreciate that. And I, as a town resident, do appreciate your time and efforts on this town board. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And yeah, we'll definitely be talking to the committee on
Thank
you know, what, if anything, and how to do it and where to put the sign, if we're going to put it back up, all that kind of stuff. So yes, thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
What
Thank
was
you.
the sign?
It said historic district. That was a historic district. That
in
was
the
Parade
parade
Ground
ground?
Village.
Yeah,
Yes,
Over
and
by
then
Salvatore.
it was redesignated so development could happen
right.
there.
So
and
where'd the sign come from? It just,
it
fell
was taken down probably, I think it
Oh.
was
Overall,
in
picked it
front.
up today, dropped it off.
wow.
Yeah,
It fell off the
I-
4x4 posts
Oh,
yeah.
about a week ago.
I
And we're
think you're right.
losing
We
the
need to do something
Presbyterian
honoring the
Church,
parade ground.
You know, we're
Yeah.
losing some very significant
Yeah.
properties there. So,
Yeah.
you know, although it's not designated in the code anymore as a historic district, a lot of history did
Certainly is
happen there.
historical.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I agree. We have to do something. It just looked a little strange with a historic district right in front of an extremely modern building.
Yeah,
So-
a very
so-
modern
yeah.
building, yes,
Yep.
but yeah. And if we could just get more letters on those signs, we
Yeah.
would be all good.
Yeah.
But thank you again for your time. and
Thanks,
effort.
Kathy.
Hey,
Did I
Kathy?
pronounce that right with the
Yes.
house
You
that
did,
we're,
yes.
okay.
I have a question. The house that's on the corner, is that considered the historical area?
Which house?
Also.
Well, the parade grounds village was actually where the
The
soldiers gathered and
Saratoga
practiced.
Realty, I think it is.
No, no, that was,
not.
I mean, it was, there were several homes in there. The beauty salon
Yeah.
was one of them. Again, a lot of those have been replaced. There was, I can't think of her name, it's out of my head, the one where the lightning hit and the tree went into the
Yeah.
home. James Roberts was kind enough to save many of the artifacts inside the house, the wood staircases and all that. And he wanted to give them to the town, but we have no storage and neither does the historic committee. So those things have all been lost. But it is important to preserve what we have and to recognize that. So I do appreciate your time with that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
We will all be historic someday.
Yes, right.
Hopefully it
Some of
stays as
us, some of
history,
us
too.
already kind of are, but. Yeah. Any other comments from town residents? Ted? Ted, do you mind going up to, because we've had complaints when we're streaming that people who are watching can't hear unless we're at the podium.
But they need to hear you.
Just question I have is, do we have a date for Community Day?
September 11th.
I have not received anything, or unless you're holding back.
No, I just mailed out. Check where we mailed it to you. I know that we mailed them out. I'll send you an email.
It's been brought to my attention in the past that there was complaints as far as that goes of whether myself handing out free apples and other things for free when it came to a food substance. So I would request that perhaps the town could reach out to the New York State Board of Health and perhaps have somebody on site to inspect the vendors to ensure that we are all in compliance.
I mean, everybody that sells prepared foods has to have a DOH certificate. So,
Oh,
Would that complaint come from the public?
The complaint that I've heard was that Cynthia addressed it to whether I gave away apples or Alyssa with popcorn or the woman's auxiliary for the fire department selling pies would need a permit. And I called the Board of Health, giving out apples. They gave me some recommendations, but a permit is not required. So to clear the air, so to speak, or to turn around and level the playing field and ensure that everyone's safety on Community Day, that someone from the Board of Health would be at Community Day to ensure that everyone is in compliance.
okay, we'll nail this down, one way or another before Community Day. Thank you, Ted.
yeah,
Darren, can I say something?
Sure.
Recently, when I was putting this Rockatoga fundraiser on, I tried to get food trucks in here. And out of the whole planning process, the food trucks was the biggest hurdle. And when I went to the town, I heard complaints from the ordinance that we have for a vendor's permit in town. And I understand the health issue. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with getting the permit. But within that ordinance, they wanted photographs of every employee in every food truck or organization, a photograph on file at the town. And I had some food trucks that actually called up and canceled on me because they thought it was extremely excessive. They didn't have any problem with the health department, the permit, but the time it took them to file for a one-day vendor's permit was extremely excessive. And the other thing is they could not fax documents in. And some that are from out of the area, Amsterdam and Albany, that have restaurants, etc., could not find the time to go up and file for the permit on site. And I questioned how old it is, and I think it went back to 98, 88. And I think it's time we at least evaluate it and update it, because it's extremely excessive. You can't fax documents in, they have to be, I can't fax them, you can't photograph them, can't email them. So I had one vendor that took time off from his restaurant and drove from Albany up here. And actually, he's still on with us. So it's extremely excessive and out of date. They didn't even have email back then, I bet you.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to take a look at that, you know.
Has to be done.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Do we have a motion?
Second?
Discussion?